appreciate you coming on. It's great to get you on the weight room. If you haven't gone and checked out my episode on New Amsterdam, make sure and go and check that one out. I'll link that one in the description below for people to go and check that out. You have a ton of great content. You kind of have a similar vibe of what I do here, just talking to people and figuring out kind of what they do well and lessons they've learned. So everybody, go check out his podcast. It's great. He's doing a lot of cool stuff. But to get things started, if you want to just kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, I have a podcast called Knew Amsterdam Radio. We don't have nearly as cool merch as the weight room, but no, it's Flobo Boyce here, man. I always tell people I am a live entertainment professional, and my job is to make sure that when you have an event, whether virtual or face to face, that it's something that's unique. So I'm a podcaster, broadcaster, pro wrestling ring announcer, commentator, esports shoutcaster, and I also do weddings and auctioneering as well. So anything on the microphone, man, that's I'm your guy.
I actually know another guy quite like you in regards to kind of the diversity of stuff that he has done in his life, and he actually is now on a radio station. And so it's funny you mentioned all that stuff. My mind immediately pops to him. Is doing all of this is being kind of multidimensional in that way something that you've always had an interest in?
Oh, interest? Yeah. I mean, I entertainment is something that's was like the calling, but I kept denying and suppressing it. You know what I mean? Yeah, you go to school and you're supposed to do well in school, to go to college, you get a good job. And I thought I knew what a good job wanted to be. I was in finance in high school and I was in communications in college. But I think one thing over another, your true calling will always find a way to bubble to the surface. And I always had dreams. When I was a kid, I had dreams of being a Power Ranger. I had dreams of being an actor, and can't say I wanted to be an actor now, but it was always there. And when I moved out west to California as an editor, which is someone behind the scenes, there was still that spark of, man, I wish it'd be cool to do what Jay Leno did, or Fallon did, or Colbert did. And with the pandemic, I had time to recalibrate because I already had a couple of years of stand-up comedy under my belt. I had a couple of years of writing novels under my belt. I was like, what I wanted to do. And it was like, well, these things have been nagging at you. Like nothing nags at me to fly a plane or to pick crops or to knit or to teach school children, but it kept gnawing at me to try entertainment and stand up and comedy and writing. So I decided to lean into it because you only get one life here,
Tell us, kind of a weird jump here, but tell us a little bit about your time and your journey in the world of fitness, and where did that start? What sparked that? You kind of mentioned it was via the weight, but like even before then, was there ever something for you that was like a necessity or interest or passion, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. There was a little bit of dabble of sports. I was a big kid when I was in high school. My first year, I was 5'7", 275. And so I was on my football team on the line. And so I was and I did karate as a kid because I wanted to be a Power Ranger, like I said before. But as far as like the whole fitness and weight loss thing, going to the gym is something I've tried and failed at a bunch of times. I would go, 2 months would pass and I'll get tired and not go. But I got to a point when I was in my mid-20s where I was about 375. I was close to 400 pounds. And I decided to make a change. And I had failed so often that I decided to go at night, at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. at an all-night gym, because if I failed again, no one would know. But then that was different because I found trainers who looked like me, or I found people who were bigger than I was who were working out. And that was the negative motivation that became the positive motivation to keep doing what I was doing. And even though gym was my least favorite subject because I couldn't run, I came up in the mid 2010s where the rise of the road races, like I think there's a lot of companies out there that were having like you're around the block 10K and we'll give you a medal if you give us $100. And I was like, okay. So there was kind of like the instant gratification of getting the shiny medals for running 3 miles, 6 miles, 10 miles. I did 5 half marathons. It's the lowest I did, but that really saved my life because in Southern California, there wasn't a winter in that case. You go out, you could run 11 months out the year. So eating right and and beginning to run and getting the medals, and I got those medals all over my apartment now. It really opened me up to what I need to do to maintain it and to keep it off. And I always say that it's always the small milestones. The first 30 pounds, no one noticed. When I was a 4 extra large, that was only 6 weeks because I was from a 6 extra large, or the time where I got to buy clothes off the rack at Walmart, I almost cried because I was never a possibility, and just taking stock in the small victories and being able to do that. So I can never say like, oh yeah, man, I woke up one day and I was like, yeah, hardcore, extra weight. Weight means more dates. It was just kind of like, hey man, in my 20s, I want to live longer. I want to, get myself better step by step, and so I can fit these clothes, sit in this plane, to go to this theme park where I have to worry about whether or not I can fit in the roller coaster, that sort of thing.
Very interesting. I think a lot of people who've never been in that situation, they don't think about that aspect of it. Just like what you think about in any given situation, what are going to be limiters here? And you mentioned, plane or theme park or going to the pool, right? I mean, just certain things that some people take for granted is like, okay, these are just things that we're going to go do. You kind of thought more about them, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. The joke or the analogy or the story I would say is, like, if I told you, hey, look, we're going to Disney World, you'd probably say, okay, great. Let me get my, I don't know, my wallet, my goofy hat, and we're ready to go. For me, the first thing I would think about is turnstiles. Can I get in the park? Rides, can I fit in the park? Do I have to carry my sweat rag because I will sweat all the time? And where are the park benches in case I needed to rest? But I was 22 at the time. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't older. I wasn't otherwise differently abled. I was essentially a young able-bodied person thinking about park benches and things like that. So it was definitely a different way of thinking, and it's one of the few things that there's no sympathy for, because everyone feels that if you're fat or if you're heavy, it's all voluntary. It's something you did wrong, right? It's something like a victim of circumstance or a lack of knowledge about nutrition, or being in a different environment, or not being food secure, so you tend to overeat, or having parents who show their love with bigger portions. It's always, you did it yourself. And so that was kind of like the different lens I had to grow up in, when I was trying to navigate that.
And how did you view yourself? You kind of talked about from the outside looking in at you, but how did you actually view yourself, and what were some of did you have those negative thoughts about yourself, or was it just kind of like, hey, this is me, or what was that? Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
Well, it kind of would oscillate. The short answer is like, yes, I did. Negative results happen all the time. When you go shopping, it's always weird. You would go in the pool and wear a shirt on. But there's always times where you would get up and you would do so much on a day, you would say, man, I'm pretty agile for a fat guy. So you'll give yourself the praise, and then it'll automatically come with a qualifier. When I was in grad school, so I went to college first and went right to grad school. So my grad school years were like 22 to 24. So I'm still very young. It was only when, and I'll be the first one to admit this, where I had a female friend, and even though nothing happened of it, the prospect of having a girlfriend was enough to motivate, to at least let me try. There is a bit of narcissism in that, but what is narcissism about going to the gym, right? If that was the case, we would just walk to ourselves. We take selfies for all of the bit of narcissism, because you want to be desired, you want to be seen as attractive, you want to be seen as a good guy, not just a teddy bear. So there was that as well. But if that didn't happen, yeah, there's plenty of nights and weekends where we would go, am I good enough? Am I broken? Will chicks find us attractive? Am I attractive? Am I smart? Do people think of me as slower or not as clean or not as intelligent because I had this extra weight?
Do you think that, like, in your youth you had like some beliefs built up that kind of shaped the way that you then interacted with the world, that allowed you then to feel like that this is who you were in like then and now, if that makes sense? Like, do you feel like you almost had the something built up to where you could see yourself becoming something different than you were?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people look at me now and they go, "Hey, man, you sound so positive, and you sound like you are just a nice guy." And I go, "Yeah, because I had to get my personality right because I didn't, I was never seen as desirable." And so when you are someone who sat alone at lunch, or you are someone who doesn't get asked out on dates, or you are someone you're kind of hanging out on the park bench on your own, you tend to like appreciate things that are at least beneath the surface. And so I would say a lot of my personality is informed by that. There is a bit of defensive nature now, because I'm not saying I'm like the hottest guy in the building. I mean, frankly, I'm the second hottest guy on this podcast. But when someone says, "Hey, look, I think, are you single?" I go, "Why is she asking me that? Is she settling? Does she think I'm cute? What's wrong with her?" Like, I mean, I do think that's part of it as well. But when you grow up and you have a family unit that, like, teases you, quote unquote, lovingly, and that's just the way it is, even that's the case, still tends to weigh on you sometimes. Or if you're in a culture where they still show their love through food. I mean, Mediterranean couples, families do this, or in my case, West Indian, West African, where they have the big spreads and all that. And even if it's like, "Hey, you should lose weight, but here's these cookies we baked you," I think a lot of times that's a problem. Like, I'm not an emotional eater. Shout out to anyone who is, but I'm the worst at portion control. So, like, this is why I avoid buffets to this day. Or I go once or twice a year, because I know I go to all you can eat sushi, I'm going ham. And if you allow yourself to go ham every once in a while, cool. But I'm not a kind of person who's like, "Hey, man, every Friday, let's go to the buffet," because I know that I can go crazy. And that's regardless of how I'm feeling of the week or so. So to answer your question, yeah, I mean, you grow up in an environment, especially looking a certain way. I was a fat kid, a fat teen, a fat adult. And that's kind of informs you now, you know.
Yeah. And is that something that you feel like is still a fear, or ever a fear to you, that like, man, we can't get back there. We got to do what we have to, to do to not to get back there. Is it a fear to you, feel like, or is it something that's just like, hey, we know what to do. We can manage this.
It's a little bit of both, because there's times I'm like, "Yeah, man, meat and vegetables, man, meat, vegetables, and working out, easy peasy, fresh and squeezy." But yes, because I do love donuts, right? I do love burgers and fries, and I'll take it one step further. So I had lost the weight naturally. So I went from 375 to about 230 at the time, and in my late 20s, and I had loose skin, and I had to get the surgery to get the loose skin removed. So I didn't have a lap band. I lost it naturally, but I have the procedure to get I got 7 pounds of skin from my abdomen removed. And the procedure at the time was $8,500. And I had crowdfunded. Back then it was called You Caring. Now it's called GoFundMe, to get people to help me out with that. And my friends chipped in, I think, less than 4,000, but still a big considerable chunk of what was needed. So that's on my mind all the time. Like there's 100 and no, there's 24 friends that donated at least $100 or so, or around that amount, to make sure that I'm okay, and that I can get the surgery I needed. So yeah, when I do have gluttonous days, once in a while, it's always fun. But when I go on vacation and I'm on vacation mode, there's like a period on day 3, I go, "Don't waste your friend's money, man," because it's a lot of work to have a crappy job to save money to give to somebody who wants an elective surgery. I mean, that doesn't favor my mind at all. So I do think that there's a bit of pressure there as well, to keep on the track. It may not be as stringent as I would like, but every couple of days I have to recalibrate what I want to do.
And I think if you don't, I think that's where things do start to kind of slippery slope. I think that that's all we can do, and give ourselves a little bit of like a leeway in that. And is that something that you ever feel is kind of a struggle at all, or maybe it's something that you've learned, is just giving yourself like
A bit of grace, yeah.
oh yeah, the grace about it.
So yeah, absolutely. So like, for my personality, maybe because of this or other reason, I'm a hermit. So I like to spend time by myself and to recharge the batteries on my own, and that's just me individually. But let's say I'm dating someone, I'm hanging out with them, and we do the things that people on dates do. We go into the buffets, we go to a city and just go to like sit down restaurants, and it may be me saying I got to reset and find out and go back to my plan, but I have to be careful that it's not so outwardly obvious that I feel like I'm shutting that person next to me. and going like, yeah, hanging with you is a bad influence. I'm going to go ahead and do this too. And so I've been in situations where someone's pulled me aside and go, you're obsessing about it. You know what I mean? I think there's imprecise science to it. You don't want to say, don't worry about it, YOLO all the time. But there's times if you're too stringent, you may come off as being rough. And if someone feels like they're a bad influence to you, whether they mean to or not, it makes everyone feel uncomfortable. But I think I am getting better at that. Like this morning, I was supposed to. So yesterday, just for full disclosure, I was at a hospital waiting for my friend having an outpatient procedure. So I had nowhere to go. So I ate everything. I had like a chicken sandwich over here. I had fries over there because I wasn't going to go out and do anything healthy. And today I'm looking at my cupboards going like, you have to correct yourself. But I had some ice cream at lunch. Like, I don't know, like, why not? And I said on the back end, I'll get some salads or I have some food on deck. I have meal preps on deck, but there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, look, hey, you're going to have this. You're going to intake these calories. Be grateful of what you can and what you can provide for yourself. And then the next meal, I make the next steps.
And you mentioned that you when you were kind of in those early stages, you were seeing like you really didn't even notice, or people around you didn't start to notice those things maybe as quick as you did. At what point though did people really start to point out and be like, "Hey, are you doing something? What's going on here?" And did some people even see it as a negative, like are you doing this in a healthy way, or you're being unhealthy, or anything like that?
So that's a very complex question. So just for context, I was a 6 extra large and shirt, and my pants, my jeans was a size 54 waist. So I was putting in like 3 months of work by myself at the gym at night before anyone noticed because I was wearing like baggy clothes. I'm also a hip hop kid. So I was wearing back when clothes were baggy, y'all. I was wearing baggy clothes. So no one really got into it. And there was a kind of like a part where I had to get over the hump of, hey, no one's noticing it, but keep going anyway. And at first it's like, hey, have you done something? I think there's a bit of trepidation when things are slightly changing because no one wants to be offensive. I don't want to say, oh, I'm sick or I'm ill. So no one really says anything. And so I got over that hump. It was great. So my first year of working out, to my credit or discredit, I lost 80 pounds that first year. And then people were kind of like doing, hey man, you're getting way too skinny. You're doing it right. You're okay. And I had loose skin because I was heavy for so long in my life. My skin was stretched out. So that's something that was kind of pulled aside, making sure that you're okay. But all you can do is talk to your trainer and your medical professional, and you say what you want to do, and they put you on a plan, right? And if you're not doing anything healthy, they probably will chime in. And I'll be honest with you, there's some times where that kind of weighed on me, and I go, I'm not being healthy. I gotta have a donut. And there's like a weekend bender I put myself on because someone told me I'm being skinny. Because with that cycle of work out pretty hard, people say you look good, you treat yourself, and then you treat yourself too much, you go back to working hard. I've done that windmill a couple of times, but I do think that ultimately people do mean well when they see you change. The year after my second year, I lost 50. So I lost 80 my first year and 50 my next year. So I had lost 130 that first year. And then I was like living on a high for a year. I was like, oh, you're different. You're sexy. You're changed. You spelt. You're amazing. And I was taking it all in, just feeling it. But that third year, I plateaued, which you should after a while. Yeah. And I had to deal with that. No one was saying anything. They already saw the transformation, but you knew you were still obese. And you're like, well, what do I do? You got to keep working out. You haven't hit your goal yet, but no one's giving you the sexy words of adoration anymore. How do you navigate that? So I've been through it all, man, for sure.
And did you have a specific goal, and did you have a specific timeline for that goal, or was it just like, hey, I'm going to do it for as long as it takes until I feel like I'm where I should be?
Yeah. So when I was 16, just for background, I'm from Brooklyn. So I was 16, the Twin Towers had fell due to the attacks of 9/11. And so I wanted to join the military, and I was turned away at the time. And they said the weight limit there was 6 foot tall and 200 pounds. So that was the original goal as an adult when I got to be as heavy as I was. But when I started training at 375 or literally 368, I said, hey, if I lost 150 pounds, I'll at least be in the ballpark of what I wanted to do. So that would be like, 225, 230 or something like that. So when I hit that, it was great because I remember the year. It was like August 2000. In 2013, like Gangnam Style was the hottest song of the summer. Like I remember the day where I actually hit that plateau, that being part of the goal. But then of course, when you hit that goal, you go, do I want to maintain? Do I want to lose more? That sort of thing as well. So, but that was it. It was like 150 was a nice round number. And so when I started working on earnest, that was kind of the goal at the time.
Gotcha. Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. And, how did your identity really start to shift and mold as first you lose 80 pounds that one year? Did you start to see yourself as this one thing? And then next year you're 50 pounds down. Did you start to feel and think and be a different person then? And, compared to today, like how did you see your identity shift as your physical nature is shifting?
I don't think my identity changed, but I become more self-aware of what I am. And that's so felt, right? Like I think my personality is the same. I think I'm pretty tolerant and open-minded, but I will say, not to brag, and to trust me, I'm not trying to flex on them. I don't know who's listening, but the people who did come up to me and ask if I was single changed. The dates preposition changed. And I got really defensive. It was like, well, do you like me now because I look this way? Or did you like me as a person beforehand? Or I go, oh, she only likes me because she's settling, right? And so that is something I had to deal with. I still am on some level, you know what I mean? When someone says, I think you're cute, I go, no, you don't. Because I've been there. Like to me, I'm still 24 years old, 280 pounds with a full head of hair. But as you can tell right now, none of those are true there, Daniel. You know what I mean? But I think that's impacting that. But as far as like my identity, who I am, I think I still am a kid from Brooklyn. I think I still am someone that's fair but just. I think I still am somebody that tries to go for honesty first. Like that stuff has been resolute.
Gotcha. And then, you mentioned hitting that plateau, and is that something that scared you? And how did you manage to, continue to do what you wanted to do? Everybody hits plateaus, whether they're trying to lose weight, gain weight, but how did you manage that?
At first I thought I was it. I was like, maybe I'm just big boned. You know what I mean? Like I thought that was kind of the deal. I wasn't into like something extreme as like CrossFit or P90X, but I kind of got into like, okay, let me just try something else here. And so I went to the gym, and at the time I was doing like 10 minutes on the elliptical, and then another 5 minutes on the ab machine, another 5 minutes on the bench press, and I was calling it a day. So what I did for like 4 months, not quite six, I would go to the local bowling alley, all night bowling alley, grab a ball and just start bowling 3 games at a time, 5 games at a time, just for cardio and the repetition, got the heart rate up just to do something different. And that helped me break that. So yeah, when I was my first plateau, I thought I was pretty much going to be there forever, but then just trying something else, nothing new, something different was another challenge, the muscles or cardio I needed to break that.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny. People talk about like whenever you said we or bowling, I thought of Wii bowling, right? Because that's how they initially had marketed, is like this is physical activity, this is exercise. And I don't know, it just like sparked something when you said that. Is like, are you the inspiration behind that? But
Yeah, probably. I mean, my ball was like 15 pounds. It was like heavy. And so it was just me. So there was no time to sit and rest and order a beer. It was like, I'm going to go and go and go. And I probably had like one built arm and one noodle arm when it was done with it. But that's what kept me going during the week, during the days.
I don't know why, but I thought when you said that you were gonna say you went and like grabbed a ball and started doing like squats or something with it. I don't know. I just very, very interesting that the bowling thing was that. Did that get expensive though?
Well, it could be, because I'm gonna show you how much of a nerd I am. So the games in a lot of these low places, because bowling is all like fancy now, globe bowling and stuff like that. But the games themselves at the time were like $3 or $4. So what I would do, I bought a pair of shoes for $70. I bought my own ball for like 200, and I would pay the $9 or $8 every day or 2 days or so. And that was a lot of money, sure, in the grand scheme of things, but still cheaper than like, going out on an excursion or doing like that. That was my entire entertainment budget. So that was better than going to the movies. That was better than going on a trip. Just go ahead and do that and mix it up between that and the jogs and all that.
Yeah. And is that something you still like to do, is just mix things up and try different things and see what, works when?
Yeah, for years I would just run because that was the cheapest thing to do. You go out in the morning and get the iPod, remember those,
Oh yeah.
and go out for a jog. But this year, this April, so for sidebar, I like to go to baseball ballparks and around the country and see major league teams. And I was in Seattle in April to watch the Mariners, and I went down to Pike Place where Starbucks was, and there was a place that sold pierogies, which is like puff pastry that was filled with fillings. Took it back to my apartment, my hotel, and I nibbled on one that was rhubarb, and I just got disgusted with myself. I'm like, yeah, cardio's not doing this. I need to like change this, And so I remember that time I went to a gym app and downloaded it and signed up for the gym that day. And so now I'm adding weight training again. So yeah, you got to find new things because your body gets used to things, and you get older, it gets harder to recover as far as you going and doing food damage and thinking, oh, I'll have a couple of abs in a couple of days. Let me just have some salad. So yeah, this April was kind of the last big shift in that. And so now I alternate. I'll either get up and I'll run outside because I hate cardio indoors. I think that's the most boring thing on the planet. Or other days I'll go and I'll go to the gym. I'll do weight training.
Gotcha. And with the weight training, what differences have you started to see, just being more consistent with that and how things are going?
So two things. One, the good thing is that the lady I'm seeing now says I'm becoming more chesty. You know what I mean? Like I get to work on muscle groups, and I try to do full body every day, which is kind of like the opposite. Because I was a football player in high school where you do like muscle groups per day, but I try to do basically a circuit every day. So yeah, I can go like look in the mirror every time I come up the shower. I do the little flex in the mirror. I go, yeah, progress. But sad and tragically, on the other side of things, I remember I told you about 10 years ago I had my skin surgery for my abs, but I still have loose skin in my arms, my pecs, my quadriceps, my obliques, I think more egregiously my obliques. So now that I work out, I have like this giant like triangle, but instead of the triangle going down to a point, it like goes to a point and like has this weird bulbous flare out because my obliques still have the loose skin from before. So it's kind of amplified some of the old body that I'm still carrying, in addition to the new body I'm working on. So my chest is rock hard, but I got soft pillowy sides, and that's something that I had to deal with on a mental level, especially because in my line of work I wear dress clothes, and dress clothes are less forgiving, and shows everything when you put them on. Because it's loose skin that doesn't really adhere to the ab wall or to the body wall, you really can't work on it. So it's kind of been defeating, right? So like I can work and make my obliques or my thighs or quadriceps or my hamstrings either like as flexible or as built as I can, but the loose skin exists outside of the plane of what you can control. So it does become defeating. I will say there has been nights where I've been looking on like, I wonder who can do this for cheap and resculpt the body. But at the same time, though, I know one, plastic surgery can't solve everything. It really has to be a mental thing. And two, that, yeah, there is a reminder you're not done. There's always things to do. And it's not to look a certain way, but it's to make sure you're healthy long term, right? Whether you have conditions in your family, whether or not you want to live forever or have flexibility, there really should be a part of the weight loss or a part of the fitness journey where you do it just for yourself.
Yeah. And then along the journey, just in general, at what point did you really start to, I guess, really utilize like different resources? Maybe that's just like looking stuff up and trying to figure out the best ways to do things rather than just kind of like the trends and stuff like that. Maybe utilizing, diet, nutritional advice and things like that, and better ways to run or better ways to lift or things like that.
So I would say 4 months in. So when I started weight training the first time at that all night gym, I was still going to the gym working out, 20 minutes a night, thinking I did a lot, but I would still have Carl's Jr. or Hardee's twice a day. And I would be like, oh, what the hell? Where's my change? And one of those food things that my gym had at the time, 24-hour fitness, is that if you paid a certain level and you did a certain they had a game thing, did a certain machines or whatever, you earn enough points for like free training sessions. And I made a point to earn enough points to get a training session, get it, take all the notes I can, and then like push them aside and work on it. And so whether or not someone's listening to this now going, what do I do? It's build a knowledge base, right? Like the YouTube University can be dangerous if you look at things recklessly, but there's a lot of information out there from really knowledgeable people that you can try different things on. And then you can always research things that work for you. Obviously, bring your findings to a medical professional and see if that worked for your body and physiology. But there's things that I wouldn't even thought about. Like I dabbled in so many things that did not work for me. But I find things that did work for me. Intermittent fasting works for me. The carnivore diet does not work for me. That's just me personally. I'm not trying to say that it works for anyone else, but that's definitely that kind of thing is building a knowledge base. Find other people that are doing it or have done it, whether or not you have to do it by hook or by crook, and then take and ask them, pick their brain, get their knowledge, take that and apply it to yourself.
And is the experimentation something that you enjoy? Just the fact that it is kind of experimental in a way. Like, I don't want to say you enjoy it if you don't see results, because I think that that would probably be, you know, maybe an overstatement. But do you just kind of enjoy it just for the fact that, like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm trying something new and it's a little bit different and fun and that kind of thing as well?
I think sometimes like it depends. Like intermittent fasting would never be fun because you're literally opting out of food, right? And that's something that as a fact you're like, oh man, this is great. But then at the same time, the whole body hacking thing, or if there is a feeling 2 or 3 days or 4 days in when you feel like you're a superhero, that's always great, right? That's always like, oh man, I feel lighter, I feel more energetic, I can get up and do things. I mean, you can't deny that feeling, because when you can do more things, then you can apply that to your workouts. So there is a kind of an ebb and flow to that. But sometimes the actual machinations are kind of like lame. You know what I mean? Oh wow, a kombucha diet, great, put it on. You know what I mean? Or I don't want to work legs today. No one likes legs. You know, it sucks. It's kind of a grind.
Right. Is there a career? Is there personal and career and things like that, opportunities that you've thought about, like, hey, because I've been, taking care of myself, that I've now received, or I've been in the right rooms because I feel more confident going in those rooms. And now I've received these opportunities and it's put me in where I am today.
I don't have a concrete example, but I'll have to say so. This is somebody that, yeah, I had hair, but it was like very stringy, and I was, 6 extra large. I mean, you don't see many people of that on TV, and people that booked in gigs. I do think there's an upward trajectory when it comes to that, and people can't really tell how old I am, right? So I'll say there's some surface to that. I think we're very physical-based society, very age-based society. So I'll give all the praise to keeping yourself in shape, but I can't tell you of a pinpoint example of being like, oh man, I got it because I was looking a certain way.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
Right. Yeah, I think it is interesting how we I was on Instagram today and I put this post up, and it was about like living to 100 or older, and this documentary where it talks about blue zones and what that is and all that kind of stuff. And this person commented, which, it wasn't like a person trying to be rude or trying to be whatever. I think it was a genuine thing, but it just kind of goes to show. And what they said was that they didn't really want to like live. I think they specifically said 40 years of being an old person, right? So I guess they were saying, like, once you hit maybe, I guess, 60 or 70 years old, that's when they considered what they consider an old person. And they didn't really want to live that long in that kind of body or mind or whatever. And I think it's so weird that we do that as humans, because, and I think it is very cultural that we think that, right? I mean, there's so much value in, and that's what I've kind of commented back in a very genuine way, is like, hey, I think there's so much value in getting older and in the knowledge we gain and the wisdom we gain. And, we may not look beautiful anymore, right? Or we may not be able to do a backflip anymore. But if we're healthy and we do the right things, then we can be very physical at an older age. You see people that are 70 years old doing, like bodybuilding. You see like a 90-year-old person that's doing a marathon or something crazy like that. So the physicalness is definitely a real possibility. And the mental side too, like you keep yourself healthy, you're very much less likely to have all the mental problems as well, you know? So I think that we just look at age as being this thing that is like set in stone. Okay, when you hit this age, you're probably going to have to be on blood pressure medication. When you hit this age, you're probably going to, you know, be at a higher risk for a heart attack. Or when you hit this age, you might be, you know, not be able to walk anymore. So I just think that there's a stigma around it, but it's really only because it's reinforced by the way we live and not the reality of what's possible and the potential behind that, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of us have seen that individual, whether it's our friend, our family, or someone we know, or we go to a old folks home and they're 80 or 90 and they aren't very mobile and they don't really do a lot, and they have their television or what have you. I mean, that's a stereotype, obviously. And we have that feeling in our head, oh man, I can't imagine being that. But two things to note is that, one, you never notice the decline. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I said that I thought about it and I was 20, I did a lot more. But when I get up and I'm productive, I don't think of myself, oh, I'm productive at being someone who's 40, I'm productive at being someone who's 50. At the same time, it's the whole living old thing. It's like you get to be okay with it as you get older. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying to be lazy, but there is some kind of reward we give ourselves when we go, hey, look, man, why not go for a nap? I had a nap today. When I was a kid, you couldn't put me down for a nap. I had a nap this morning. I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to take on the rest of the afternoon. Let's get it. There is a bit of how your body changes, what stimulates you, whether it's food, whether it's romance, whether it's anything else. And there is a bit of a challenge to that. But I totally understand the image we have of what an old person is. But I get it. But Daniel, I'm gonna be honest with you, Father Time is undefeated. If you live that long, that will happen. You can still lift those weights. You can still go for a run, but Father Time is undefeated, man.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that we as people want to ignore, right? We want to think, oh, and obviously with all the technology and all of the advancements in different areas, just scientifically, we can make ourselves look like we're, 20 years younger, 30 years younger than we are. But you're right. Like, it's something that you have to learn to accept and learn to see life from a different lens. Like you were saying, like it's okay if you can't do the things you were doing at 20 or 30, but that doesn't mean your life still doesn't have value. And like, I think it's so weird to me. I mean, I hear people all the time say, I don't want to live to be X amount of years old. And to me, it's like, why are you giving up your life? You're automatically assuming you're going to be this kind of person or have these kinds of values at this age. And just to say you don't want to live then is just like crazy. Like, you only get to live one time and you're already saying that you don't want to live in 10 years or 30 years or whatever. To me, it's like, is there any other living creature out there that wouldn't want to be alive?
I think we're kind of so scared, especially in this country, of how we treat our elderly as well. You know what I mean? Kind of like no one wants to hang around with people a certain age. We put them in homes. Medication's expensive, or family doesn't talk to them. I think that's another valid concern about living that kind of life. But I'm with you. I mean, there is some beauty in being older for sure.
Yeah. And, just getting older, regardless of your age, but in your specific situation, as you do continue to get older, how have you seen your own efforts, not your effort shift, but in some way your motivations for those efforts shifting, and how do you continue to kind of like think about them shifting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more internal now. Before we were 20 and 25, it's like, I gotta do something for the ladies, gotta be hot for the ladies. I do good for the girls. The girls love me. I know it's very heteronormative, but it's true. I was kind of like what my great motivator was. As I get to my late 30s and early 40s, it really is kind of like, what can I do to preserve myself? What can I do to keep myself of sound mind? My mom used to say, as long as I have my mental faculties, I'm okay. And that's a big part of it. But it really is about yourself, eating right, or try to be flexible. That's the first thing I realized about going old. It's not so much like me being tired. It's like, oh, I can't sit on my knees as much as I used to, or I can't squat as long as I used to, or, I had to get physical therapy because my hamstrings were tight. I was possible to have tight hamstrings. Like, what's going on that level. So, yeah, I like to think that it was more external when I was younger, but now it's definitely more internal as I get older.
and just culturally different. I don't know, maybe if you can make the comparison because, just the difference in your own age when you did live in New York versus, living in California. Is it something that you immediately noticed as like, oh, people out here are more health conscious? They're more about, going and getting their walk in or working out or eating this or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. New York is actually pretty in a good spot too, because there's health clubs and it's a giant city. You can pretty much do whatever you want. But there's two big things about California. One, it's health conscious, and the weather was the other thing. I can run in January. I can go to a restaurant and say, "Hey, look, I'm on paleo. Hey, I'm vegetarian. Hey, I'm vegan. Hey, I'm gluten free." The country is catching up to that. To its credit, but in 2007, 2008, when I moved to California, that was really the only place I was doing that, where you can say, no, I'm going to go to a vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free restaurant, and there'd be a full menu for what you wanted to do. Or I don't have any money, but I can run down my block in my t-shirt and jean and my shorts or jorts at the time, or shorts in January, in February, and March. You go to places like Mississippi, yeah, it's warm all the time, but the culture of what are you doing jogging? Like, what are you going out there? If you go to New York, yeah, you can have a health club membership, but it gets super cold. This is kind of a personal thing. When I was young, the worst bout of the flu I ever had was in high school, because my last class of the day was at 1:00, and I had gym class. And so I remember one winter I had gym class, but I had to go home. And so I would put on my clothes and go outside, still sweaty with my jacket open. And I got the worst bout of the flu I ever had. So working out in the wintertime still freaks me out. Even though I know most times you get sick due to surface contact and germs and sneezes, not so much the weather. That time to me was like, oh man, forget it. But in California, you get like, oh, it's 65 degrees. That's your winter. Or it may rain today. That's your winter. Make sure you try to do something for yourself.
With one of your big personal interests we were kind of talking about before with the wrestling, right? Is the wrestling culture and is the, obviously wrestling physique, right? I mean, you're grown men that are big and muscular and in shape. How did that, if any, if at all, kind of impact your own view on like what health was or fitness or what athleticism was or things like that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I grew up as a teenager in the mid late 90s. Your Triple H's, your Rocks. The Rock was kind of like the model because he was brown like I was, and that's something that I aspired to. Thankfully, in 2011, when I started working in wrestling myself as a commentator, ring announcer, I learned about indie wrestling. And indie wrestling has sizes and shapes for all different kinds. But yeah, there's no denying in the 90s, it was all big and burly and thick boys out there slapping meat. And it was even bigger in the 80s. I mean, steroids aside, I mean, you had the Ultimate Warrior, you had Hulk Hogan. These guys were heroes. They were human comic books. They were Superman and Batman fighting every week or so. So yeah, I definitely pulled it. Because I know when The Rock was so cool, I would try to show up to school wearing like flowery shirts and dress pants and gold chains that was obviously fake, but The Rock wore it last Thursday on SmackDown, so I had to ask my mom for it. And that was having the chest out, even though I know I didn't have a chest to have out to match that. So yeah, wrestling has a lot of that. And granted, now people are smaller now, but physique is still important. We ask how many abs you have, like a Finn Balor. Finn Balor is somebody, if you don't know, if you're listening to this, not a wrestling fan, considered small by modern wrestling standards, but he has like 35 abs. It's not even possible to have as many ab squares as Finn Balor has. You know what I mean? Because it's all about how you look in the ring.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned The Rock. I actually had somebody on a couple days ago, and he mentioned when he was a kid, he was a smaller kid, skinnier kid, kind of, nerdy kid, as he described himself. And he would look at the old magazines. I can't remember which specific ones he was talking about, but it had The Rock on it, and he was like mesmerized by it. And he picked it up and he took it back and he went, and looked at it. And that's what really got him into that world as well. And he mentioned it too. Like it was like looking at a comic book, these guys that were just like on a different level, and of course, as a kid, you see them and you don't realize kind of maybe, okay, they are taking PEDs or, different steroids and stuff like that. But like as a kid, you just look at it and go, this is the blueprint for what I want to be like. You know, they have the swagger, they have the body, they have, you know, everything that seems cool. And, you know, I think as men, we I think get looked over a lot. You know, women's body issues certainly get their fair share today on being important, but I think men, they do often get overlooked in like what standards are set and how almost impossibly hard it is to get there.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if it's just probably TMI, but you know, you look at the JCPenney catalog and homeboys are packing heat when you're like 6 or 16. You're like, is that even possible? Like how? You know what I mean? Or for me, like learning about abs. My abs were surgically created. So I had my loose skin and they cut 7 pounds of skin and they pulled the remaining skin over my ab cage. I woke up like Spider-Man, that movie, with abs. But I didn't think it was possible. I thought it was something that you had to be an alien to have there. And I was lucky to even experience what that was. And I think I tell people this all the time, probably much in jest. There is no Dove real men have curves ad campaign for guys. They have for women, but that's something that we have to deal with as men. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting, you know, the standards that we do set versus the realities, because I think there's always a little bit of like, it's kind of like a lie, right? There's a little bit of a truth in every lie. And I think that there is some truth in what, you know, that standard is set as and what people want and but then it's blown up. It's like 30, you know, like you mentioned, the 36 abs or, you know, 22-inch biceps like Arnold or whatever it may be. It's like, okay, it would be great to have bigger arms, or like, it would be cool. It'd be cool to have like more muscle, or it'd be cool to be toned, or it'd be cool to be, you know, just fit in general or whatever. But then to like blow it up to that new extreme, that new level. And just as humans, I think we're so good at taking something that is like already kind of crazy and extreme and then blowing it up even more. And so it just makes me think like, well, if that's the case, what does the future look like? Because, you know, you see it now with like filters and with stuff on social media and photo editing and stuff like that. So like, where does the standard even start to get set at almost like a technological robotic level too?
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of wax written about the role of men, the physical attributes, and masculinity, whether or not we should be more sensitive, less sensitive, we should quote poetry or be in the gym to fight Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it is kind of a hodgepodge. And you wonder what the next generation has to deal with, but it's a lot. And it's a lot. I understand we can never compare it to the plight that women have to go through, so I will never do that. But the next generation has to understand, like, there is almost an insurmountable balance you have to hit between looking a certain way, feeling a certain way, and then trying to learn a certain way to be considered the ideal man.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to end the podcast is that, because I think there is beauty in a balance though, right? Like knowing that it is good to work out, but is it great to be addicted to it? No. Is it good to, you know, it's great to be smart and it's great to be, you know, thoughtful and compassionate, but then you can go too far on that end. So like there's beauty in that balance. And I think that we can all reach that and we can all like be the best version of ourselves when we have a little bit of this and a touch of that and a dash of that, and then find our passion and just kind of work from what we really kind of want to be. But man, it was great having you on my podcast. I really appreciate you coming on. It was a really fun talk, and I look forward to more episodes of Knew Amsterdam Radio, man. It's one of my
absolutely
favorites.
Man, thanks for having me on, man. I thought that we were going to talk about one thing, but I'm so glad we went down this different path, different direction, man. The weight room was always good, man. I got my 20-pound dumbbell going ham right now, so glad for the invite.
You got it. And if you want to, before we head out, share your socials or podcasts or anything like that, anything more, you can do that.
Absolutely. Knew Amsterdam Radio airs every Thursday on your favorite podcasting platform, but your boy Flobito is available at flobito.com. That's FLOBITO.com, and at newamsterdam.com. That's KNEW Amsterdam.com.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.